Hi everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to guide you step by step and we are going to turn some napkins and some inexpensive wooden coasters into ornaments. So here are the wooden coasters. I got these from Amazon. I will link them in the description box. They are super smooth and I'm really impressed with the quality of them. Now to turn them into an ornament we need a hole to hang it. So I'm putting this on a 2x4, putting a little bit of tape so that I don't splinter the wood, and I'm just using a drill bit and my cordless drill to drill a hole in each one that I am going to use. Now you don't want to drill the hole after you do the work, just in case the wood splinters and something happens, and you're going to also have some medium on there, so it's best to do it first. I'm giving this a light sand, but really I didn't need to do much at all, just round the hole. So here are the napkins that I am using. This one's called 3 Snowmen. All of these napkins come from NINNYSNAPKINS. This one's Praying Angel. And this one I believe is called Kneels. And I'll link those in the description box below. And there's a coupon code to Ninny's. So there are my 4 of these. Now I put tape on the back because I didn't want them moving and getting the backside painted, because I was thinking I was going to leave it plain, but I don't. So what I'm going to do here is gesso both sides of every one of these wood rounds. So taping them down really wasn't necessary, but that is a trick that you can use on a different project. So now I am going to prepare the napkins. And I'm just cutting out one section of the napkin. I'm using my template to figure out exactly where I want to place it. And I'm removing the excess plies. Now I put a coat of gesso on there, and then I'm putting a coat of white paint. And I'm doing that on all of them. And the reason it's white is because all of my napkins are very light. So once that's dry, I'm putting a coat of Mod Podge, and I'm going to let this completely dry because I am going to use the iron decoupage technique. And what that is, you put the Mod Podge in, or the adhesive. I could use fluid matte medium if I want it. I'm keeping an eye of where the hole is because I want to make sure that that's the top. I don't want to have it on the bottom inadvertently. And put a piece of parchment, and then I'm ironing it on. And you can glue it down with your fluid matte medium, but this way it is completely smooth and there are absolutely no wrinkles. Now I'm just checking to make sure that it's perfectly adhered. Then I'm taking this file that I got from the Dollar Tree. It's Diamond brand. It works so well, and I'm just going around and cutting off the excess napkin, and this does it perfectly. Now if there was any places that it didn't go, you could put the parchment paper back on and re-iron it. Now I'm going to show the other 3, the finishing, later on the line, and I do something a little different on each one. Now I want to seal the napkin because I am planning on overpainting or shading part of it. Now you could use your fluid matte medium, or you can use clear gesso, and I'm opting to use clear gesso. It goes on cloudy, dries clear. This is sealing the napkin and it's turning it into a non-porous surface, so that is going to help me when I go to colorize it. If I don't do this step, anything that I put on there is going to wick on the napkin and it's not going to work well. So you absolutely need to do that if you're planning on overpainting. Now I'm on this Ranger blending foam. I am getting brown paint and I'm just edging my ornament. Now, truth be told, you could stop right here. You do not have to do any of this other stuff, but I like to make it my own. I like to make it look a little bit more painterly. I like to boost the colors, and that's what I'm going to show you. So to boost the colors here, I'm grabbing a couple colors from my Inktense blocks. I'm matching it as closely. There's a blue there and a brown, and I'm going to grab those blocks out and I'm just testing them to make sure that they are in fact the correct colors or close enough. So I'm just testing that on paper, and as you can see, they're very, very close. This is a very watercolory napkin focal image, so that's what I'm going to do. But I want to beef up those colors, make them a little bit darker, so they stand out even more. And I'm just dropping in little bits here. I'm kind of targeting the areas that they had blue, and I'm putting blue, but I'm not really sticking to that either. And as I said, you could leave it alone. If you're too worried about ruining it, you could call it done. Edge it and be done. But stay tuned, because I'm sure you're going to want to give it a try. So here I'm just adding again more color everywhere. Now Inktense block are ink, and when they're dry they are permanent. So while they're working like watercolor, they are not watercolor. Watercolor will reactivate later on, and you don't want to do that, because I'm going to seal this with varnish later on. Now I'm getting my fine liner brush and I am globbing on a couple shades of green, just on the holly wreath that's on the bear. Now this gives it dimension, and a little bit of texture, because it stands off from the flat. So it looks like it's more painted. So people are going to wonder, did you really paint this, or is this a napkin? Now I'm edging it using my shading technique with some black acrylic paint and my angle brush, and that's really framing it. I really like how the brown wasn't quite enough, but often I do two colors and I like that effect. Here I'm just shading a little bit around the bear. This one is very watercolory. The lines aren't exactly solid, so I don't want to mess it up. Then I'm taking my liner brush and then a thin brush, and I'm just dabbing on the white. I want to whiten the whites here, and I do that with all the ornaments that are coming, just brightening up those whites. I just want this to stand out, and again, that's adding texture, and it's making it look more painterly, less like you glued a napkin. Grabbed my stylus and I'm just dotting all the holly berries. And again, this is adding texture. And just that little bit, it just brightens up the ornament. And look at that. I love this. I grabbed this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm just adding these white dots. Now in the original napkin there were some white dots in the background, so I'm just adding them back because of course when I overpainted I kind of got rid of them, and I like that effect. So it looks like little snowflakes in the sky. So I'm not really reinventing the wheel, I'm tweaking it. Then I'm splattering with a little bit of gold because I like my bling, and very quickly we have one almost done. Now I'm flipping it over, being careful not to get anything on the other side, and I'm giving this a coat of gesso because I want to make that watercolory look, and I wasn't sure that it was going to do it just with the gesso there. So I'm taking those same crayons and I'm just dropping in the Inktense block in that blue and the brown, and just recreating the background that was on the front. Now I kind of wish I had left it with just this, but I didn't. I'm going to go on and I'm going to add some more things to it. I've learned along the way. So I grabbed this stencil called Flurries from the Crafter's Workshop, and I'm masking off one of the snowflakes, and then I'm stenciling that snowflake onto the back of this ornament. Now these Wood rounds, I've discovered they take stain really well. So you could just stain the back and that would work as well. Here I'm using Prussian blue to stencil on this snowflake. I wish I would have used white. I'm not a big fan of this background. Now I'm edging it with the Prussian blue. I'm trying to make it look better, and then I do the black around it. I splatter it with white. And then I want to stamp using my wooden blocks the word joy. So I get black paint on my Ranger blending foam. I put the letter into the blending foam using it as a stamp pad and then stamping the word joy. Now because I put a coat of gesso on here and it's all permanent, if I needed to erase, that will allow me to do so. And there we have the first ornament. So let's work on the other one. So again, we're just going to fast forward through a lot of this. You prepare the napkins. I'm cutting off a section, removing the excess plies. And I'm doing this more assembly line. So if you're doing a set of ornaments, do the parts assembly line. Here, put the parchment on and iron and set it aside. Place the focal image. Now the base, of course, has had a coat of gesso, a coat of white paint, and a coat of Mod Podge that has been dried. And then I'm ironing, using the iron decoupage technique. So if you were making a dozen ornaments, you would just do all of the ironing all at once. I'm cutting off some of the excess, and then I'm using my nail file to get rid of the rest. And again, assembly line. So you could have them all ironed on and just take your nail file and do that while you're watching TV. So now, very important step, I'm sealing them all with a coat of, I'm using clear gesso, but you can use fluid matte medium, gel medium, what you have. Now, people say that if you put this layer of some wet medium on top that you get the wrinkles back. I did not. So the snowman, I'm again using my Inktense blocks. I've matched the colors using my swatches, and I'm just going to overpaint the colored parts of this. So the teal, the red, and then I'm going to whiten the whites of the snowman as well. Now you can use acrylic paints, but I would water them down, and I am going to be using acrylic paints on some of these as well. So I use a mixture. I usually look and see which color matches better. Some acrylic paints are more opaque, so you're going to block off what's underneath, so some of the shading, some of the line work. So that's why I like using my Inktense blocks, because they're more translucent and you can still see what was underneath it. So I'm just building up again the color to the color intensity that I want it to be in. And I'm always drawing in between the stages. I don't film all that drawing time, but I want you to know that I am drawing. Then I'm using my angle brush and I am shading. And the shading here is what adds so much. It makes it look more 3D, more painterly. It makes the focal image stand out from the background. So I'm shading the snowman, the scarf, the hat, the snowman from the background. And here I am brightening and whitening all the whites of the snowman. And I'm kind of going over the edge a little bit to soften that where it ended on the napkin. I'm quite happy with what I've got going. Oh, got to paint the nose, some orange, so I'm just taking the acrylic paint right out of the tube here. And then I grab my stylus and some black acrylic paint, and I'm dotting back the buttons that kind of got lost when I did the white. And then I'm going to dot the eyes. Now here you can make these elements bigger should you choose to. And I did. I made the eyes just that little bit bigger than what was. And once again, I'm going to shade around the outside. Here I'm using the teal color, and then I'm going to come in with black. Again, getting that two-toned look. I have a snowflake stamp, and I'm using white acrylic paint, and I'm stamping snowflakes onto the background. I was going to change the color of the background and make it kind of a blue, but I decided to leave it more neutral. But again, with every one, you have options. So if I was doing more than one of these snowflakes or snowmen, I could do each one just that little bit different, play around with different colors. And here I'm edging with the black. So the sides of each of these rounds ends up being black. Now I have to say, like, even with all the medium that I gave it, these rounds stayed the right color. Now to do the back of this one, I mix Prussian blue and Naples yellow, and I got the teal color that was on the front. Now it's not filming like it's that color, it looks a lot more green, but I'm just brushing that on to the background, and once that's dry, I'm going to edge it. Now I'm being careful not to get any paint on the front side because I don't want to wreck my work. So here I use that same stencil. I stencil on a snowflake with white, and I get out my wooden alphabet blocks and I stamp out the message, "Warm Winter Wishes," in white acrylic paint. So again, I'm using the Ranger blending foam as a stamp pad with white acrylic paint, and I'm just stamping that message on. So you could just leave the picture in the front and put the phrase or sentiment on the back. You could also stamp in the person's name. I splatter with gold here. And then I decided I'm going to splatter with red, introduce that red color that was in the front to the back so that the whole thing works together. So this one with the little gnome, here I decided I'm going to use that teal paint. I watered it down, and I am going to turn the background here into a watercolory teal background. Teal and red work so well together. I have teal in my home, so I love having the ornaments that go with my decor. So you could personalize this whatever color you want. It could be light blue for the sky, or you could leave it white, or do it beige. So I'm using a lot of water here, dropping in color, and this is actual acrylic paint, not the Inktense block, so you can see you can make it look like watercolor. And to that point, I decided here that I'm going to go grab some salt and sprinkle the salt onto the wet pools of paint. That kind of soaks it up, and you get this textured pattern look. I wanted it to look like snowflakes. So once I put the salt on, I have to let it dry. You can use a heat tool, but then make sure it cools before you rub off the excess salt. And you can see the texture that it has. So here I'm using one of my brushes and brightening the whites of the beard. And I'm just kind of globbing it on, so I'm adding texture. I'm not trying to make this super smooth. I don't want it to be smooth. Then I grab the red and I'm painting out red. So you've seen me use the Inktense blocks to colorize it, and now you're seeing me use the red paint, or just acrylic paint, slightly watered down. So don't think, oh, she's using Inktense blocks, I can't do this. You can totally do it. Use what you have. Just, I highly recommend that you use some product that is completely permanent, that's not going to move when you varnish this. And I'm filling in the whites of the hat. So again, I've just brightened those colors, made it stand out. And now I'm edging with black, which really frames this ornament. Makes it stand out just a little bit. And then I am coming in and shading this gnome. I'm going around the beard and the hat, and then around the interior of the napkin. I'm loving that salt effect. It just added that interesting pattern and texture to the background. And I'm just making the beard stand out a little bit more. And splattering with white paint. Once that's dry, I decided I'm going to get my silver paint and paint the blades of his skates with my liner brush. Add some highlights to the nose. Then I grabbed my fine line applicator bottle. This one has gold paint that has been thinned, and I'm just making stars. There were stars on that napkin that got covered up when I painted, and I just wanted to put them back. I like them there, so I'm just adding a few stars to my background. You could have used a stencil, a star stencil, if you had, or a star stamp. Just showing you options of what you can do. But we're going to be using these fine line applicator bottles for something else later on. So the rounds and the applicator bottles, I will link to Amazon where I purchased them, should you be interested. I'm giving him a little bit of grounding on the bottom and then shading a little bit across the top. And now for the back, I decided to not paint. I wasn't happy with the last two backgrounds, so I put a layer of Mod Podge, let it dry, and I found a coordinating napkin, and I'm using the iron decoupage technique and putting a napkin on the background. And I absolutely love it. It's super simple, coordinates with the front, it's decorative. Did I say it was super simple? And then I'm sealing it with gesso or fluid matte medium and then shading around it. I shade it with Prussian blue, and now I'm coming in with black and edging it. Since I had the fine line applicator out, I thought, oh, you know, I'm going to add some stitch work. So I've got white paint in this bottle. It's been thinned. It's just Liquitex Basics white paint that has been thinned to the consistency that comes out correctly. There's no magic recipe, and I have a video that shows me mixing it, and I will try to find it and link you to it. But I love the stitching, so I grabbed the other ones and I add black or white stitching, whichever one I thought is going to show up best. But I think these really made these coasters, and then I did the stitching on the backgrounds as well. So on the angel one, again, I looked and I found this green napkin, matches the green that's on the front. It's got these stars and gold. So again, I put a layer of Mod Podge, let it dry, and then I'm ironing on the napkin, making it super, super smooth. Cutting off the excess. I'll be using that napkin for further ornaments. And then using the file. Now I'm just painting the green. I'm globbing it on like you saw me put the holly wreath that was on the bear. I'm adding green, darkening the colors. Here I'm just using straight up acrylic paint. I'm adding green and white to her wreath. Not a wreath, crown, I guess. Then I'm whitening the whites of her dress. I end up overpainting the entire angel. I absolutely love angels and I collect them, and while several of these ornaments will be given away, the angel one, maybe not. So I'm adding white to the wings. I paint the stars white. So again, any of the overpainting that you see me do, you can do as much as I'm doing. You can do something different than what I'm doing. You can do parts of it. Or you can just edge it, put maybe the stitching on, and call that a done. I wanted to make her hair a little redder, so I grabbed my Inktense blocks and changed the color of her hair. Added a little bit more color. This is where you put on the Christmas music and you colorize the different napkins. Now, if I was doing the one napkin, I might have 4 angel ornaments to do. And so you kind of, again, get into that assembly line effect. Or you try really hard to make each one slightly different and personalized. I'm edging with brown, and then of course I'll be coming back, giving it that two-tone with black. Now remember, I did seal this with, I use clear gesso, but you want to seal that napkin after it's ironed on with some kind of sealant, some kind of protector, fluid matte medium or clear gesso. Now I'm just shading. I'm adding a lot of shading to this one. Probably did the most overpainting. Grab out my letter blocks and stamp piece with black paint. And there we have all 4 ornaments. Now, if you didn't drill a hole, you could put cork on the back and turn these into coasters, but you need to seal them with Polyvine wood varnish, I believe is heat resistant. So you want something that's heat resistant, so if you put a coffee cup on it. So which one is your favorite? So check out the affiliate links, both to Ninny's Napkins and to Amazon if you're looking for any of these supplies. Enjoy the close-ups of each of these ornaments. I'm going to put a ribbon on them, and when my tree comes out, they will be hung on the tree. Stay tuned for more holiday napkin tutorials.